Criminal affairs. I had a meeting with the Onzels yesterday, announced last minute like everything they do, but at least they're making an attempt to plan the raid, and we've decided to move everything up. We're doing it this Friday instead of next Saturday, with another meeting on Wednesday to file any rough edges. I'm not pleased with the now extremely short amount of time we have until we proceed. I'll have to put out a rush notice for the supplies I ordered, but it's their operation, and they have agreed to take responsibility for their actions. There is nothing more I can ask of them. Supposedly they are bringing in a few outside forces, a data analyst and some mercenaries I believe, but I don't expect there will be an issue. We will most likely need them based on the Onzel's past operations. Here's to hoping I don't die. Trigger Happy has, once again, been relatively quiet. They hit one place yesterday, but it was a simple robbery rather than an explosion. It seems they've let off their steam. We'll definitely be seeing more of them, but perhaps they will be a bit more docile in the future. As long as they stay away from my house and don't blow up my bank, I have nothing against them. As for what I've done this week, I'm going to tell you a story. I believe in a past episode, when mentioning Michael, I addressed them as a long story, and I assume that would be why everyone wants to know how I met them. To appease those of you who ignored my original replies, I'm looking at you analogy, and still demanded to know, I'm going to tell you. So if you could stop asking, that would be fantastic. Sometime between 1.5 years and 2 years ago, I was holding up a convenience store in the outskirts of town. Somehow, in the midst of the clerk putting the money in the bag, I hadn't noticed a teenager making their way into the store, and I had absolutely no idea how, but they hadn't noticed me either. I retrieved my bag, now full of cash, and turned around from shooting the clerk in the foot to see that teenager, Michael, standing dumbfounded in front of the coolers a few feet away from me, 6-pack of beer in hand. They were attempting to steal it, being very obviously underage. I would have let them go had they actually gone anywhere, calculated risk, but they stood there, staring at me for an unfortunate amount of time. Eventually I gestured at the door. Perhaps they realized who they were staring at, but it may also have been because I gestured with my gun, and they began sprinting like a bat out of hell. The absence of fight or flight response was, frankly, ridiculous, and what I saw upon leaving the store didn't help. I saw them again 1 year later, when they found me whilst I was doing errands in town. They told me their name and announced they wanted to join me. I said no, and for about 2 months I believed that was the end of that. Then they appeared again, and again I said no. They began finding me once a month or so until recently, when the frequency of their visits increased. They still haven't given up. Based on my experience with them, they would not survive a life of high-stakes crime. Perhaps if they had changed between 2 years ago and now, but they are still the child who stole beer because some stupid students told them to, and they are still the child who shakes if you stare at them too long. Perhaps that's just me. In other news, my meeting with Cole went well. We aren't meeting tomorrow because I'm preparing for the raid with the Onzels this week, but we will be meeting again next Monday. For the moment, it is a semi-weekly gathering, and I am marginally estranged by it, but I will survive. Cole has supplied some good information so far, and even accidentally gave me some fantastic information to apply to my current project, which I mentioned last week. Said project will be revealed in due time. It is time to reveal our viewer story. This one is from user Analogy111. I am, in fact, the hired driver of some famous bad guy. We call my boss Provolone, after the mafia guy from a few decades ago. We do anything he says because we know he won't hesitate to kill us if we don't. So I'm off shift that day with my buddy, and the driver that's working calls me, saying he has to go somewhere. I have no idea what that means, but I know he needs me to take over for a while, so I go to the boss. Provolone says something like, "We need to go kill Dusty," which is this guy he's had a thing with for a long time, but this time we actually get in the car and drive off to find him. We find him at home, they duke it out for a little bit, then they turn into pals again, and it's all good until the other driver shows up with a minigun and tries to murder all of us. I'm not really supposed to say what happened next, but we killed him, and I'm the only driver now. It sounds to me like your employer has his employees in check, for the most part at least. That's something, even if one of them went rogue and attempted to murder everybody. Did you ever find out why the other driver did so? Regardless, it sounds as if you serve your employer well, despite his seemingly sporadic behavior. Thank you for your submission. You can find me at diaryofamastermind@gmail.com.